Ready to step off the map from the most hidden alleyways to the stories nobody told you? Uncharted Alleyways begins now. Your definitive guide and travel podcast, culture, adventure, and the world as you've never heard it. Tune in, disconnect from the obvious, and come explore with us. Uncharted Alleyways, your next trip starts here. Imagine a city that basically birthed the most explosive era of human innovation in history.
Right, a period that just completely rewrote the rules.
Exactly. Rewrote the rules of art, engineering, science, philosophy, all of it. And by all of our modern logic, a place that generates that kind of world-altering, paradigm-shifting output should look like, a chaotic, high-speed tech hub running on endless adrenaline.
Yeah, just constantly buzzing.
Right. But instead, it is a city engineered almost entirely around the speed of a human walking.
Welcome to Florence. Okay, let's unpack this. We are looking at a remarkably rich travel script from a series called Uncharted Alleyways, specifically their dive into Florence, Italy, or Firenze.
It's a really incredible piece of source material.
It really is. And our mission today for you listening right now isn't just to list off a tourist itinerary of pretty buildings. We are going to extract the psychological architecture of the Renaissance.
I love that phrasing. Thanks. We want to understand how the physical design, the extreme craftsmanship, and the remarkably intentional pacing of life in this specific city catalyzed a global rebirth of human thought.
It is a fascinating premise because, the Renaissance didn't occur in a vacuum.
Right, it wasn't just magic.
Exactly. It didn't just happen by accident. The environment actively cultivated it. And to really grasp the mechanics of how an environment shapes a society's collective mindset, we have to look at the physical journey into the city itself.
Right, setting the stage.
Yeah, the source script paints this profound transition of leaving Rome on a high-speed train heading north, and that journey serves as a necessary neurological reset before you even set foot on Florentine cobblestones.
The text highlights that visual transition so beautifully. You leave behind the massive, overwhelming scale of Rome, and within hours, you are gliding through the rolling Tuscan countryside.
Just completely different energy.
Totally. You are looking out the window at these stretching golden fields, rows of those iconic tall cypress trees lining quiet country roads.
And the vineyards practically climbing up the gentle hillsides.
Yes, and these ancient stone farmhouses just sitting peacefully among the olive groves. The script points out that this specific scenery actively slows your heartbeat down.
It's biological almost.
Right. By the time the train glides into Santa Maria Novella station and you step out, your nervous system has been recalibrated. You are primed for a fundamentally different spatial experience.
Which is crucial because the physical contrast between Rome and Florence dictates a totally different human experience. Rome is a city designed to be absorbed.
Like it washes over you.
Exactly. Its scale is intentionally grand, built to constantly remind the individual of the sheer looming power of an empire.
Right.
But stepping out of the station in Florence, the sensory shift is immediate and palpable. The sky feels closer. The streets are narrower. The physical space completely changes from an external projection of power to an internal invitation for intimacy.
I was actually trying to map out a way to describe that structural difference, and this analogy came to mind. If Rome was designed like a massive broadcast antenna...
Ooh, I like where this is going.
Right. Like projecting one booming, spectacular IMAX-level message of imperial dominance outward to millions of people at once, Florence was built much more like an intricate, brilliantly crafted indie film.
Yeah.
Or like a peer-to-peer network where you really have to lean in to catch the details. The narrow streets and the lower skyline force the everyday people walking those streets to constantly interact, exchange data, and process their surroundings at a deeply human scale. But how does this lower skyline and pedestrian scale actually change a visitor's mindset?
Well, that peer-to-peer analogy captures the mechanism perfectly. Rome projects outward, but Florence pulls you inward. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this comes down to a centuries-old tradition of intentional civic design.
So it was completely on purpose.
Absolutely. By keeping the general skyline deliberately modest and low, the city planners ensured that the massive cathedral dome would visually dominate nearly every sightline.
Right, the Duomo.
Yeah, it provides a shared, unifying focal point for the entire population. But down on the ground level, the narrow streets enforce physical intimacy. You aren't crossing 6 lanes of roaring traffic. You are navigating alleys that echo with human conversation rather than, the drone of engines.
And because you are moving at the speed of a pedestrian without the peripheral threat of high-speed vehicles, your brain naturally reallocates its processing power to the details.
It has the bandwidth to do so.
Exactly. The source script is so vivid on this. When you are walking through these alleys, your senses are just flooded with hyper-local data. You are catching the scent of fresh espresso mingling with warm bread drifting out of neighborhood bakeries.
Oh, it sounds incredible.
Right. You're passing centuries-old storefronts housing tiny gelaterias and bookstores. You look through a window and see a leatherworker carefully, methodically stitching every single piece by hand.
And that right there is the neurological primer for a cultural rebirth. When you are walking slowly through a space designed for human interaction, you are biologically forced to notice the craftsmanship around you.
You literally can't miss it.
You're making eye contact, you are smelling the materials, you are registering the physical labor required to make a single leather bag. An environment that removes the superhighway and replaces it with an alleyway invites a society to pause.
To really look closely.
Yes, and to develop a deep, collective appreciation for human effort. You simply cannot foster a renaissance in a society that is constantly rushing past itself.
Which naturally begs the question, if the streets are engineered to keep your eyes down on the human level, focused on the micro details of daily labor, how did they handle the macro level?
The big monuments.
Right. How do you build monuments meant to make a population look up to the divine without losing that obsession with craftsmanship?
They apply the exact same philosophy of hyper-detail to an impossible scale. The centerpieces of the city are monuments to extreme, singular focus.
And the Cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore, the Duomo, is the prime example of this.
Oh, absolutely. The script notes that 1,000 photographs cannot prepare a person for the physical reality of standing in the Piazza del Duomo.
Because the exterior literally defies logic. I mean, it isn't just large, it is entirely covered in these incredibly intricate geometric patterns of white, green, and pink marble.
Like a colossal piece of jewelry.
Exactly. It looks less like a building and more like jewelry. And the dome itself was a generational engineering marvel that rewrote the laws of physics for architecture.
It redefined the parameters of human capability. And standing immediately beside it is Giotto's bell tower, a colorful marble masterpiece mirroring the cathedral.
Right.
And if you take the time to climb its hundreds of stairs, you are granted this sprawling view of terracotta rooftops, the winding Arno River, and the protective green hills of Tuscany. But the aesthetic beauty of these structures is almost a byproduct.
Wait, really? So you're saying the aesthetic beauty of the bell tower or the cathedral was actually secondary, that it was just a physical manifestation of their obsession with single tasking?
Yeah, what's fascinating here is the sheer economic and temporal dedication required to execute these designs. Greatness in Florence did not stem from doing a million things simultaneously.
Which is what we try to do today.
Right. It was achieved by dedicating staggering amounts of time and resources to doing one thing exceptionally well. Consider the baptistry of St. John, located right across from the cathedral.
One of the oldest buildings there, right?
Yes, and celebrated globally for its bronze doors.
Oh, the doors covered in those incredibly detailed carved scenes. Every single carved figure, every panel, tells a highly specific narrative story.
Now imagine the psychology of the artisan who spent years, in some cases decades, laboring over a single panel of a single door.
Decades on one panel.
Imagine the citizens of Florence walking past that workshop every day for 20 years, watching one person slowly master one specific piece of metal. That creates a cultural baseline.
Wow, yeah.
It establishes a societal expectation that mastery is the only metric of success. That is a level of dedication to a singular craft that is almost entirely foreign to the modern operating system.
Okay, let me jump in here, because this is the perfect moment to challenge that exact contrast. So what does this all mean for us today?
Okay, let's hear it.
I'm looking at you, the listener, and I'm thinking about our current reality. We live in a culture that incentivizes output over everything. We consume life hacks. We want to know how to listen to a deep dive on 2x speed while answering emails and cooking dinner.
Multitasking at its finest.
Right. But looking at an artisan who spends a decade carving a bronze door, I have to push back on this on behalf of the modern worker. Let's be real. If I just sit and focus on one single task all day, my inbox still piles up.
It definitely does.
The Florentines had insanely wealthy patrons like the Medici family funding these 10-year door projects. Is this level of singular focus actually viable for someone navigating the modern economy, or is it just a romantic luxury of the past?
That is the essential friction between the Renaissance mindset and modern productivity.
Hmm.
It is absolutely true that modern workers do not have Meiji patrons financing decades of uninterrupted focus.
Sadly.
Sadly, yes. But we are confusing the scale of the work with the cognitive approach to the work. The return on investment of deep work versus shallow multitasking is profound.
Okay, go on.
When you fracture your attention across 10 different tabs and 3 different devices, you inevitably produce superficial results. You maximize your output, but you compromise the integrity of the work.
Quality over quantity.
Exactly. The vital lesson Florence offers isn't that you must spend 10 years on a single project. It is that applying undivided attention to the task directly in front of you, whether it's drafting a proposal or carving bronze yields a quality of work that multitasking simply cannot touch.
It is the economics of mastery versus the economics of volume. We have traded the deep, enduring satisfaction of doing one thing beautifully for the frantic, low-level anxiety of doing everything constantly.
That's a great way to put it.
And rather than scolding people about their screen time, what I love about this source material is how it frames this contrast through the Florentine approach to daily life. They don't just apply this extreme craftsmanship to their architecture or their leather goods, they apply the exact same intentionality to their time.
The architecture of time. It is a profound concept. The Florentine mindset views time not as a container to be stuffed full of activities, but as a canvas to be deliberately painted on.
Right. Time is a canvas.
You see this clearly in their tradition of wandering. The text highlights the cultural joy of navigating the narrow alleys without a strict destination or a rigid schedule. The reward for this unstructured time is discovery.
Just stumbling upon things.
Exactly. Stumbling upon a hidden chapel or finding a tiny, family-owned bakery where the pastries vanish the moment they leave the oven. Or simply observing an elderly man sitting outside a cafe, methodically reading a physical newspaper with a small espresso.
The baseline pacing of life is engineered for observation. I mean, the civic heart of the city, Piazza della Signoria, operates as this grand outdoor living room.
Yes, filled with people.
Right. It's surrounded by towering, impressive sculptures, but the real art is the human activity. Street musicians playing, children chasing pigeons, locals deliberately meeting up just to talk and transition their mindset before dinner.
And the cafe culture is perhaps the most accessible example of this time architecture. The source describes the ritual of ordering a cappuccino in the morning or a rich espresso in the afternoon, paired with a flaky cornetto filled with cream, chocolate, or apricot jam.
Sounds amazing.
It does. But the critical element here is not the culinary quality of the pastry, though it is excellent. The critical element is the friction of the ritual.
What do you mean by friction?
Well, you often stand at the bar. The barista pays meticulous attention to the espresso foam. The conversations linger. The environment is designed to enforce a pause. Florence systematically encourages the savoring of moments rather than the scheduling of them.
I can hear someone listening to this right now thinking, sure, it's incredibly easy to romanticize eating an apricot cornetto on a 2-week European vacation.
Fair point.
But how on earth does a person stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic on a rainy Tuesday morning commute actually apply this savoring over scheduling mindset? If time is a canvas, a Tuesday morning commute feels like a pretty bleak painting.
It is a valid challenge. It is tempting to write this off as a vacation mentality, an escape from reality. But what's fascinating here is that the mechanism of savoring does not require a piazza. It requires cognitive intentionality.
Okay, break that down.
Savoring is a choice about where you direct your attention. Treating a simple cup of coffee as an event worthy of your full, undivided focus is a mental muscle.
So it's about being present.
Right. The commuter in traffic might not be looking at a medieval statue, but they can choose to fully engage with an album or simply observe the mechanics of the city waking up around them, rather than mentally rehearsing a stressful meeting that hasn't happened yet.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. It is a conscious decision to stop treating the present moment merely as an obstacle to get through on the way to the next thing.
Yes.
And to start treating it as an experience with its own inherent value. And as we follow the natural progression of the travel script from the bustling afternoon into the evening, we see all of these elements: the human scale, the extreme craftsmanship, and the deliberate pacing of time coalesce into one defining image.
The Ponte Vecchio at sunset. The physical embodiment of timelessness.
The Ponte Vecchio is the stunning medieval stone bridge spanning the Arno River. But it isn't just a conduit for getting from point A to point B. The bridge itself is a destination.
Lined with shops, right?
Uniquely lined with these tiny, precarious-looking artisan shops that seem to grow organically right out of the ancient stone. Today, those shops are filled with handcrafted watches and intricate jewelry.
And the sensory atmosphere the script describes during this golden hour is incredibly evocative.
It really is.
The amber light reflects off the water, creating this visual warmth. Gentle melodies from street musicians drift through the cooling air. People lean against the ancient stone, watching the river flow beneath them, engaging in lingering conversations.
As the evening winds down, the city's mechanics are so quiet. Bicycles lean casually against centuries-old walls. The deep, resonant sound of church bells marks the passing of time. People wander the streets, grabbing a scoop, or realistically, 2 scoops of authentic gelato.
Realistically, yeah.
As the script brilliantly puts it, Florence doesn't demand attention loudly, it earns it quietly. And this is the paradox that completely stopped me in my tracks while reviewing these notes.
The paradox of innovation and tranquility.
Exactly. Florence is the undisputed birthplace of the Renaissance. We are talking about an era characterized by explosive, aggressive, world-altering innovation.
Disrupted everything.
Right. It disrupted and redefined science, art, literature, and human potential. By modern standards, any environment that generates that volume of disruption should be chaotic, hyper-competitive, high-stress, and overwhelmingly loud.
It should look like Silicon Valley running at triple speed.
Yes. Yet the city that birthed this explosion feels deeply calm, quiet, and timeless. How on earth does an environment so profoundly slow and peaceful spark an explosion that changes the world?
Well, it forces us to re-examine our modern assumptions about how profound ideas are generated.
Yeah.
We've been culturally conditioned to believe that innovation is a byproduct of chaos, stress, and breakneck velocity.
Grain culture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the mechanism of true, lasting innovation, the kind of paradigm-shifting thought that alters the trajectory of human history, actually requires quiet cognitive space.
Yeah.
It requires periods of deep, uninterrupted reflection.
Because if your brain is constantly dedicating all of its processing power just to surviving the noise and keeping up with the speed of the superhighway, you literally lack the bandwidth to formulate an original thought.
Precisely. The slow, deliberate pace of Florence, the cultural emphasis on walking, on sitting idly in a piazza, on savoring a single espresso, these are not distractions from the serious work of innovation.
They're the fuel.
They are the fertile soil that allows innovation to germinate. When a society engineers its environment to slow down enough to appreciate aesthetic beauty, to focus deeply and exclusively on one craft at a time, and to allow expansive space for lingering, cross-disciplinary conversations, they create the exact neurological conditions where profound ideas can take root.
Wow.
The Renaissance wasn't born in spite of Florence's quiet, methodical pace. It was born specifically because of it.
What a phenomenal reframing of productivity. The idea that slowing down and hyper-focusing isn't a retreat from ambition, but the very foundation of it.
Absolutely.
It's not about producing more volume, it's about producing higher quality with unwavering intention. We have covered some profound territory today, so let's synthesize the core insights for you. We started by examining the psychological impact of human-scale architecture.
Right.
We saw how a city designed for pedestrians with narrow streets and a modest skyline forces individuals to step out of the role of spectator and actively engage with the details and craftsmanship of their immediate environment.
We then unpack the mechanics of extreme singular focus. By looking at monuments like the Duomo and the intricately carved bronze doors of the baptistry, we explored how a generational dedication to mastering one single discipline creates a cultural baseline of excellence.
Completely challenging our modern reliance on shallow multitasking.
Exactly.
And we explored how that exact same philosophy of craftsmanship is applied to the concept of time itself. We discuss viewing time as a canvas rather than a container, where savoring moments like lingering over a coffee or wandering without a destination is a deliberate cognitive choice to treat the present as an experience rather than an obstacle.
Florence truly operates as a living masterclass in choosing to savor time rather than merely spending it.
And it is worth noting that this is only the beginning of the exploration.
Oh yeah, the source script actually teases a part 2 to this Florentine journey.
I can't wait.
It promises future deep dives into some of the world's most significant art museums, a closer look at the specific genius of Michelangelo, an exploration of the artisan-heavy Oltrarno neighborhood, along with peaceful gardens and the mechanics of local, authentic food culture.
That is going to be an incredible continuation to dig into. But before we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We began by contrasting Rome and Florence. How Rome operates like a booming IMAX spectacle, while Florence functions like a brilliantly crafted indie film that forces you to lean in, focus, and process the intricate details.
Right.
So, looking at the architecture of your own daily life right now, if the city of Florence was able to spark a global renaissance, a literal rebirth of human potential, by intentionally combining deep, singular focus with a slow, deliberate pace of life, what kind of personal renaissance might you experience if you stopped trying to frantically multitask your way through the day and simply focused on crafting just one aspect of your life beautifully?
That is a profound question to carry with you into the rest of your day.
It really is. Thank you for leaning in, slowing down, and exploring these ideas with us. Until next time, take a breath, focus on the details, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.